Good evening here where I am, and good afternoon, good morning, good day, wherever you are around the world. We thank God for this wonderful day. We thank God that He woke us up this morning. It was not because of our choice or because of our healthy diet that we woke up this morning, but we woke up because He decided that He's going to give us another day to strive to do what God wants us to do. We are having a great show starting from today, from now. It's called From the Clergy's Perspective. And we're going to be talking about different topics of real life topics. I can say we're going to be talking about real life topics here at Africa USA Radio. We're going to be bringing different pastors, different bishop, apostles, all fivefold ministry, and even outside the fivefold ministry, people that we think they are relevant as far as the church is concerned. Maybe they are serving as elders, maybe they are serving as deacons, maybe they are serving as youth pastors at church. We're going to be bringing all those people, but the title is The Perspective of the Clergy, the clergy's perspective of every problems, of every topic, of every thing that people are talking about in the secular world, also in the church world, so that we can clear some of the things. We want to answer your questions. We want to encourage you in what you're doing. We're definitely not your pastor. We are definitely not the leadership of your church, but we will be answering some of the questions that you have, and in support of what your pastor and your apostle, your leader at church, he's been teaching you or she's been teaching you for the rest of where time you were in their church or under their leadership. Today, it's an inaugural show from the clergy's perspective, and we are having a blessed man of God that I love so dearly. He's like a young brother to me, and he's from Soweto. It's great to see pastors from Soweto, because Soweto sometimes is known as one of the rough and tumble places where you're just gonna be whatever you be to survive. But this young man, he was raised in church by Pastor Mahlangu, and his lovely mother, who passed away recently, my sister, Sister and but I'm introducing him like that because he's just personally too close to me. He's not only that. To me, he's a young brother. I'll always call him about his nickname, but he is the doctor, Dr. Sipho Solomon Mahlangu, and he's a head lecturer or professor at UNISA, University of South Africa, in the theology and business side of that university. Also, he's a principal of Bethel Bible College, which is a wing of our denomination, which is United Apostolic Faith Church. So he's a teacher, he's a principal over there. They are running the Bible College. They call it Bethel Bible Institute now, and he's a principal there. He's a Dr. Mahlangu, and he's also pastoring a church in Dube, which is under United Apostolic Faith Church. Please help me to welcome Dr. Solomon Sipho Mahlangu. Hey, how you doing, my brother?
Hey, good evening. Good evening. Is it good morning on your side, by the way? Good morning. Good morning to you, my dear brother, Reverend Mia. I trust you are well.
We are well. We are well, and I thank God for you. I thank God for your life. If I take you back, back. That was not the last time I seen you, but when you were starting out, maybe graduated high school, going to college, you went to Westville. Was it Westville, right? Westville, Durban.
Yes, at the
And
time. It was
at the
University of
time,
Durban, Westville.
and then we had to get to hang out at your sister's place in Kwandengezi. You remember that?
Yes, yes,
That
yes. In
that was
the 90s. Was it
in
in
the
the 90s?
90s. In the 90s, yes, yes, we hang out there. It was a great deal. But God has blessed you, and my brother. I'm very proud of you, and I'm very proud of what you've achieved and what you are doing, especially in the ministry. I thank God for Facebook. I always, when I get a chance, go to Hope for You Ministries at United Apostolic Faith Church in Dube, and I seen things happening there. I see the great choir. I see the church is uh, is like renewed. It's like Rema Bible Church now. It's so beautiful, and we thank God for what you are doing. And then also in the academic world, we thank God for you that you achieved your doctorate, and you are not only pastoring now, you are a lecturer at UNISA, University of South Africa in Pretoria. God is good, and I'm thank God for that. This inaugural show, I had to bring the brains. I know I've gave you some of the few questions or whatever, or I told you what topics I wanted to talk about. But with your brains, I also want I'm hijacking you now. I also want you to help us shape this broadcast, this show that we're talking about from the clergy's perspective. When you talk about clergy, we talk about you. You grew up under your father. You were very young when he passed on to be with the Lord. You were very, very young. But you grew up in the church. You grew up under the great leadership of the Mulikwas. You grew up under the leadership of the Munonyanas. You know what church is. And not to brag or not to undermine other denomination or other churches. United Apostolic Faith Church is one of the best churches that groomed a strong man of God. We have seen, part of this show is to highlight what a man of God need to be, need to look like, need to act, need to behave, need to handle himself, and that we really got it from the best as we grew up. So I want you to say a few things about what I'm telling you, that we are trying to bring this show, as I said in the opening, we are not trying to be pastors of different churches. We're not trying to be pastors of, because people, they're so easily, they love to follow things and forget where they were. So we are not pastors of your church, but we're just coming here to talk about challenges and the successes and the good things and the bad things that happens in the churches, so that we can hear it from us. Don't hear it from the media, don't hear it from the newspapers, don't hear it from the critics, but hear it from, if it's a critic, if we are criticizing, it has to be a constructive criticism. But if it's also an exaltation, if we are praising, we must not praising and take the praise from God and give it to people, because we don't want to praise you that much. We want to make sure that all glory goes to the Lord, right?
Yeah. Thank you,
So
my brother.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Thank you for a very nice and affectionate welcome that you've just given me. Indeed, there's a lot that we can reminisce about, you and I. I like it when you call me a young man in my 50s, that I'm glad that I'm still referred to as a young man. But I really appreciate you and the good work that you are doing. There's a lot I can say about the great work you are doing, but because of time, maybe let me go straight to what this new show you are initiating all about. Good morning, good day, good evening to your listeners from all over the world. It is good to be here at USA Africa Radio. I really appreciate it. I was there in the inception of this radio when you called me and said, "Hey, how do you do this? How can we do this?" And to see it grow, it's such a wonderful thing. And here you are now, few years down the line, you are starting another segment of the radio station called The Clergy's Perspective. And I think in our discussion that you had, it was more about the relevancy of the clergy in what I call contemporary society. What is the relevance of the clergy in today's society? And maybe the big question that we can start with, for those who probably asking, what is the clergy? Who are we talking? Who are we referring to when we talk about the clergy? The clergy refers to any individual who is ordained or officially recognized for religious leadership and service within a faith community. It doesn't necessarily mean that person is a pastor. It includes pastors, it includes priests, it includes bishops, evangelists, prophets, the entire fivefold ministry. But over and above that, other spiritual leaders who are either authorized to preach and teach the word of God, to administer what we call sacraments like baptism and communion, to offer any form of pastoral care and counseling, to provide whatever moral or spiritual guidance to the people, and to represent the faith community in public. And those are the clergy. And the term originates from the Latin word clericus, meaning the person belonging to the church. And I guess today we might be talking to many people who are not necessarily pastors and priests. Others might be musical artists, but they fall within this category of a clergy because they are ministering to people's lives and people's souls. And there are a number of topics maybe that you can engage on when we talk about this relevance of the clergy within this contemporary society. And I think within and I'll talk from the African context because that's where my ministry is based. That's where my experience in ministry is based. I would probably start by saying there is a huge necessity to decolonize the role of clergy within the African context. And I'll explain very briefly what do I mean when I say decolonizing the role of clergy within the African context. What is the problem with the colonial clergyman model as we know it, because the clergy to us is this colonial person, the way he presents himself, the colonial missionary model, which was introduced by the Western, is more hierarchical, and it has this elitist view of what a clergy is, and often is detached from lived realities of African communities. The clergy became the administrators of the imported traditions instead of what the prophetic voices are. Basically, when they brought the gospel, as we all know by now, that they had to bring exactly as it is in the Western culture and introduce it to us in our African context. And many early African clergy had to choose between the loyalty of colonial mission boards, as we know them in the past, or solidarity with local resistance in many issues that were affecting us. So we really need to be rerouting the clergy in our community. Clergy should reflect the ethos of Ubuntu, all over the world now. When you talk about Ubuntu, whether you are in the US, whether you are in Europe, the concept or the ethos of Ubuntu, you are because I am, is now clear, and it's a lived thing amongst all of us. Serving among people, not above them, but among people. The clergymen today, their ministry should be communal, should be relational, should be incarnational. As the scripture says, I think it's the book of John 1 verse 14 that says, the word became flesh and dwelt among us. And that's the part that as clergy, we need to live amongst the people. The clergy must be present in real struggle of the community and the people that they are part of. Clergy, as I always say, must bring this prophetic voice rather than this passive voice. The clergy must challenge injustices that we see in communities and in the world. They speak into real issues of the land, real issues of gender. They speak to real issues of economy and power and all that is happening. That's what the clergy is meant to become. The Western clergy, all that they were telling us, if was, don't worry. In isiZulu we used to say kukhona ingubo ezimhlophe esizozigqoka masifike esibhedlela. Let me interpret it in English for your listeners to understand. There are white robes and clothes that we will wear when we get to heaven. So we mustn't worry about what is happening around us. And that's the message that the colonized clergymen were bringing to many of us, without dealing with the injustices of the past, of today, the current issues that our young people are faced with today, and all over the world, that women and children are faced with all over the world. So their robes and their titles should shield them, should not necessarily shield them from what I call activism. They must be involved in activism. There must be activist clergymen. You know, if you recall, in South Africa, we used to have what we call the South African Kairos document in 1985, where Reverend Frank Chikane and many others were part of making sure that it's drafted. And it was the response by the church. That document was talking to the church by the clergy as a prophetic model of a clergy action against apartheid at the time. And that Kairos document of South Africa gave birth to many Kairos documents around the world. Today, we have the Palestine Kairos document. In Africa, in different parts, we do have that. And I think as part of the global South, and when we talk about the global South, we talk about all the countries in the southern part. There's a voice that we need to bring that brings these injustices to order. You know, so much is happening. So that's what the prophetic message that these clergymen needs to bring and be the voice, and the relevance of these clergymen in today's issues. You know, when we talk about decolonizing clergy, it means integrating the African expressions without compromising the Christ-centered faith. You know, because the Western clergymen, they took this African spirituality in us and brought something that we were not spiritual before missionaries arrived. And I want to believe that Africa was, even prior to the arrival of missionaries. Otherwise, if we say we were not even knowing that there's God, then I have a problem. They might have introduced Christ to us, but I think as we call it, that there was God. People knew that there was God. So we need to decolonize these clergymen and integrate the African expression without compromising this Christ-centered faith. And you are talking to a Pentecostal here. So there's no way that we can affect this Christ-centered faith. But at the same time, I want to believe that we can also incorporate this African expression as the church. And true clergy leadership is about vocation and witness, not status. Unfortunately, today, many clergies is about status. It's about all the money that you have, the luxury that you live in, opulence, as we call it. But clergy should be about vocation and witness. You know, the clergies must lead with open hearts, with open hands and homes, which are grounded in community service and justice. Yeah. So there's a lot I can say, but it's such a wonderful thing that you are coming about. And I think and I believe that we'll really hear a lot of voices from today and moving forward from many other of your guests talking about this topic, bringing this prophetic voice, which as much as we become prophetic, but we must be pastoral, we must be spiritual, yet political, you know, we must be local, yet global conscience that we need with what is happening around the world. So the relevancy lies not in the title, but in the presence, what I call the ministry of presence, as the agents of healing, agents of justice and faith in broken world that we live in. Let me stop there. I think I was just pondering about this clergy and the role and the excitement that you are bringing in saying, what is now the perspective of the clergymen in this contemporary society? And I believe that today, the first topic that we're probably going to be talking about is clergy and social issues, whether be it in education, be it in unemployment, We talk crime that affects all of us. Doesn't matter which part of the world you can be, whether you're in a first world country or in the third world country. There's lots that is happening. We're talking poverty. We are seeing and smelling these global wars that are happening. Right now, there's issues of climate change that are affecting us. What is the relevance of clergy when it comes to these contemporary issues? Yeah, let me pause there for now.
I look like you're going to be a regular guest here because you have opened a can of worm. But let's forget about the poverty right now. Let's forget about everything. Let's ponder more on what you just brought, as far as in your mind or maybe in your research, the clergy that brought Christ, that came as missionaries, probably in your mind or in your research, you think they were a project to come and soften our minds, or they were really bringing the gospel. It's just that they had to report to the funders or something, because there's this question that did they come here to really make us close our eyes and take the land, or what was the case there in your research?
Well, there are a number of well-documented articles of the role that the church played in colonizing Africa and doing all the acts that have left the pain in the African continent. But maybe not only in Africa, but in the global south. You go to Latin America as well, the same thing happened. You come to the country where you live right now, the same that happened. So the gospel, and it's an old thing, where the gospel, unfortunately, is and was used as an instrument to silence people, to colonize people, to numb people, so that people can either give away their lives, their land, their identity, and then colonizers can come with their political mission. So yes, it is a well-documented fact that the church, and I want to say the church rather than just say clergymen, the church in general was very instrumental in colonizing people, be it in our country, be it in Africa. We do have that, and we've seen it happening in a number of ways. So yes, it is true.
Like it's happening today. Is it today? Pastors and other prophets or whatever, they do numb or silence people to enrich themselves now, not to colonize, but to enrich themselves. Is that the same tactic, or?
Well, I think other people, they've seen an opportunity and the gullibility of people. We live in a society that is bruised, in a society that is wounded by so much, by many issues that wounds our communities. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, people are gullible. And we have found people who now use what I call, and it's something I'm going to be talking about later after this show with other audience, what I call beyond bread, from survival to sacrifice. That many people have come to this gospel because they needed this food, they needed this numbness, they needed something that gives them hope. They needed the daily bread more than the living bread. You get the difference. That and that's what colonizers would do. They would come, they would give people food, they would give them clothes as missionaries, just to take the reality away. And through that has caused people to have the gospel of the stomach. And that has even transcended that. Even today, we see many ministers who come to this field because they want to fill their stomachs. I've heard a number of people within our circles in South Africa who would say, if all fails, I'm going to be a pastor. And you ask why? I say, yeah, because I'm able that I'll make some money there, And people think being a pastor is just saying, bring your salaries, bring your money, and then you give people these false promises. We live in the time where, and I'm saying this with great care, but well, I think this is a safe space. And as a scholar, I think I'm able to discuss issues at breadth. You know, we see today people coming to Christ not because they want Christ, they want their problems to disappear, and it's been happening even in the Bible times that people would follow Christ. You remember when they came and he fed them with food. Then the Bible says the next morning they crossed to the other side, they followed Christ until Jesus said, no, you guys are not really following the miracles that I'm doing. You are following because you are hungry. You want me to feed your stomachs. So we see a lot of people, because of gullibility, who'd go to these, I call them charlatans, you know, who'll go to these charlatans, who'll masquerade as prophets, as whatever. And many of them, when you watch these shows, sometimes if I'm bored, you'd watch them. They would have placards and say, this person is crippled. We're going to pray for him. And they say, fire, fire, and whatever that they do, then the person walks. And these things are attracting a lot of people. And others say, if you need your healing, bring this, bring that. It's like now we are buying these miracles of God. Yeah. And when you look, okay, fine, I've just bought it. Where is that money going to? It's going to this opulent life of this individual instead of even going back to the community. So these things do happen. And I think it's a challenge that now, because as I say, that we need to redefine the role of ecclesias to, is it a vocational thing or it's about power, it's about wealth that we are seeing now. And many people enter into this. It's like entering into a business now, being ecclesias. It's no longer a calling. It's a business for many others.
So how to identify, how to separate? Because sometimes as soon as we see a pastor living a blessed life, we're thinking, I wonder if he uses some tricks or he's really blessed by God. And then people have questions. There were a lot of questions about the pastor in Atlanta. He was asking for another private jet and all that stuff. How do you separate that? Okay, now you had enough, or this guy is really legit, is really living under the blessing of God, because God does bless people, but as a person, how do you choose now?
There's a difference on someone who lived a blessed life and someone who lived an opulent life that he's using whatever tricks to get that opulence. Maybe other people say there's nothing wrong with opulence, fair enough. But I think a blessed life, you become humbled. When you live a blessed life, you become blessed and humbled. And I don't think, and I don't want to believe that as a servant of the Lord, you want to live a blessed life to an extent that it's far beyond the community that you serve, if you are blessed. Because if you are blessed and you minister to people who are poor, what is important to have a second jet? There's nothing wrong owning a jet, but wanting a second jet while the community that you are serving doesn't even have bicycles, let alone a car, or and when you live a blessed life, you'd also think, remember, God blesses us to bless others, not for our own elevation. And we live nicely so when we are blessed and we bless others. And unfortunately, these are the things we see in the gospel. There are a lot of people in the business world who are really blessed, but they live a very nice, blessed life. They have everything they need, but you wouldn't see them showcasing it. But come to church when people are blessed through these shenanigans ways. I think there's a drive of the social media posting, them showcasing it, them showing how more blessed they are more than others, which is not necessarily important. Yes, God does bless us, but the blessings that we receive from Christ, I don't believe that the Lord will bless us so that we can shine. Is it the right word in your language there? We can shine to others. He's blessing us to bless others, not that we can brag our blessing to others. So there has to be that balance. I am of the view, and I always joke about it within our church, that my dream since I was a young boy is always to drive a Porsche, this froggy Porsche. Yeah, I don't know whether I'll ever afford it, but that has always been my dream. And I always say to people at church where I minister that the reason why I can't even have my Porsche right now is because some of you are not yet having their breakthrough. I don't want to be a pastor who comes with a Porsche in a church, while many of you don't even have your breakthroughs, because I can't live a life that is far beyond. And when I say far beyond, I literally mean far beyond the lives of the people that you are ministering to. So you need to be relational. People can relate to you, not be afraid of you or end up being scared of you, because now you live a life that is far beyond them. And you can still live a blessed life without showcasing it. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, let's go back again. So this mentality is still there, though, that the colonizers that brought the gospel to take our land, it's hard to drive it out of there. It's true, but now since we know the true gospel, how can we explain? How can we get that mind of the people that okay, they did this, but there are some good part of it, because now we know what salvation is. We know the relationship with Christ. We know to live a good life, and we believe in the hope of going to heaven one day.
Well, I think if I'm not mistaken, it's called the Benin Conference that
Benin
took
Conference.
place. Yeah, where the church in Europe came together and strategized as to how they can divide the world amongst different. And the church was also instrumental there to say, we take this, we take that, you take that part. And that affected and diluted the gospel in many, many ways. And sometimes we like to say, because the gospel that maybe was more flourished in Africa was brought by colonizers from the West, but the gospel was in Africa even prior to colonizers come. Africa played a very important role in the gospel, even in the biblical times. The gospel of Jesus Christ was preached in Africa to some extent. I want to believe that it's just that colonizers were able to find the quicker feet or foot to drive it to the southern part and many other parts of Africa through the wrong mission. But I want to believe that the gospel would have reached us, and more so by our own. It would have migrated until it reached us in the southern part and in many corners. So that mentality that really messed up the continent is still affecting us right now. But within the circle of academia now, it's quite nice, because you see even Western scholars do appreciate a lot of damage that this gospel did, or Christianity did. Or religion, let me just say religion and not just say Christianity. Religion really did to many other countries. It really affected that wrongly. And sometimes it is important that we take the gospel and leave the person who brought the gospel.
That's right.
Because the gospel is good news and it's wonderful. It might have been brought by a person who have wrong intentions, and we cannot throw the baby out with the water.
With the water.
We need to be able to say, fine, we do acknowledge that the person who brought this gospel to us had wrong motives, but this gospel, when you put it on its own, it's truly good news, and we accept the gospel as it is, but not maybe the other motives of the colonizers. Is that still affecting us right now? Many people are becoming resilient now, when you come to Africa, and that is causing some problems for the move of the gospel, because now people will tell you, we don't want this Christianity, it's a colonizer's faith. We want our African spirituality. We want to live our African religion. We have the African traditional religions that are there, and so on and so forth. And it's an issue for another day. But I think us now want to decolonize Christianity, if I may put it that way. We need to also to be careful not to even decolonize Christ. People now, they talk about decolonizing Christ. I said, how can you decolonize Christ? In his human form, he was a Jew. He can't be anything. He couldn't have been anything. In his heavenly form, is Christ, is the Son of God. And unless you understand this triune God and believe in it, then you can't even talk about decolonizing God or Christ. It's something that we shouldn't even touch and debate on. So these things are do affecting us, but I want to believe that by the grace of the Lord, when we have people like yourself who are vocal, who speak in different circles, we shall overcome, and the gospel shall continue and shall be preached. There's a study called apologetics, where we need to defend this gospel and make sure that we preach a living gospel of Jesus Christ everywhere we are. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are with Dr. Mahlangu here. I told you I was going to dissect this thing, and that's what exactly he's doing, and I so appreciate it. So the clergy now, they need to, we preach the gospel. The gospel is good to be preached, but at the end of the day, Jesus was making people, the disciples. The disciples means the followers of Christ, the students of Christ. So once they are saved, and they are in church, do we have to bring these things up, or we just put it under the rug?
Well, the generation that we live in is different from you and I at the time when we just accepted everything. Even if when we have questions, we couldn't ask those questions. There was nowhere else to go. We live in a generation where they call them the Gen Zs. Yeah. A generation that is able to go to ChatGPT and even create their AI Jesus, whom they ask question, the AI Jesus, and he answers them. A generation that is well educated now, that is not afraid to deal with issues, and I think things are beginning to change. And this is where now, when we talk about this clergy and their relevance on these issues, we need what I call the pastoral presence, the minister of presence, where the church, as we know, the church is often that first responder in many cases when it comes to many issues, whether issues of grief, of trauma, of systematic neglect. We always look at the church and say, what is the voice of the church? So that minister of presence will cultivate, and we need true men and women of God who will cultivate this real gospel, this true gospel to people and bring it and make it relevant to people. We can use the text, what we call contextual theology. Sometimes it's important that when we read the text in the Bible, we contextualize it at that time. What was happening at the time? What were the social and political issues of the time? How are those issues relevant to today's time? How can we bring now the Bible to and now we start making the Bible what we call the living word of God. It's not just a historical book. It's not just telling us about all the things that these people were doing that you and I don't even know them. But now we're saying, yes, those things were happening at the time within a certain context. What can we learn from that? And how can we bring it to today's context and contextualize those issues and start talking and addressing issues that are real, that are affecting our communities today, politically, locally, nationally, internationally. We need that prophetic role. Clergies are called to speak the truth to power. And that's what I always say. We need clergies that will speak the truth to power. The world right now is in a mess. And the church, the big question is, what is the church saying? Are we silent? Are we scared? Unfortunately, the church becomes so much scared because we also receive funding from the people who are causing the greatest problems in the world. And we are afraid to speak out because we can lose some of the funding. I was, just to be a little bit political and a little bit, I won't go into details about it. I was quite impressed with, is it the Anglican Church in the US, after this whole thing of genocide in South Africa and bringing some of the African, we know the story, that the Anglican Church said, we're not going to take these people as refugees because we don't believe there's any genocide in South Africa. we might as well lose the funding from the government of the US. And that being said, it shows that sometimes when you get these fundings from everywhere, it silences you, you know. Right now in South Africa, and I might be going a little bit in details here, but in South Africa, if you recall, we used to have the South African Council of Churches, very vocal. I know a lot of leaders whom I've worked with in the past and today also, who are leading the South African Council of Churches, still doing a great work. But in the past, the South African Council of Churches was very vocal, very political when it comes to dealing with issues of apartheid and so on and so forth. And then, unfortunately, we had the change to the new dispensation in 1994, and that voice kind of like diminished. And many of us, we are now looking for that voice in the woods and say, where is the voice of the SACC? And some people in the circle, they will say the SACC is a bit silent right now because it's now dealing with government. It's well, the relevant word we say, it's sleeping with government. You know, how can they fight against them? And then you find that there are a lot of these ecumenical bodies that are now coming up because they want to divert and want to be this voice of the church. So it's important that we become careful as the clergy, as the church, as to how we deal with many issues. Policy advocates of issues that are bringing and we shape the discourse on many issues in our nations, in the world. You know, issues of global solidarity. You know, as clergy. We need to connect, whether we're in Africa, we need to connect with broader justice movements in the world, you know, in Palestine, in Haiti, in Sudan. We just need to find a way of bringing this global solidarity and ecumenism to talk about these real issues that are affecting us, that are confusing the world. Even the world right now, you hear the world says, I don't know what these people are fighting for. They've been fighting for years, and they don't know what they are fighting for. And you're like, indeed, you know, wow. There's this voice that we need that will bring this prophecy to the world. Yeah.
I always thought maybe is because, like you're talking about, I've been part of the South African Council of Churches and also the World Council of Churches. I remember the World Council of Churches used to also help bringing the exiles back home. They used to fund that. But I always thought maybe they were trained, even there are political parties who were only trained to be revolutionaries and trained to just to fight. Once the fight is over, they were not trained to how to transition from fighting to governing and governing to helping other people. Do you think that could be a problem? But I'm just passing through. I've got two more questions before we shut it down. You want to go through on that one?
Well, the World Council of Churches, as we know, started in the 1900s, which basically was bringing these roots of early ecumenism and saying, how do we bring people together to unify in this unified body of working together as a church in the early 1900s until I think it was its formation in 1942. I think that's when the World Council of Churches was formed, you know, and also there was this conference, we were talking about it in one of the lectures, you know, university in Amsterdam that took place in 1948 in August in Amsterdam, where there was this consultative thing. So those bodies, they were very instrumental, but the question still remains, what was the motive of these bodies like the World Council of Churches? Was to truly address the issues, or the motive was also to push the agenda of the colonizers, you know, when they bring this gospel to Africa. Until the formation of the SACC, at least the SACC, when it started forming, it started to bring a perspective of saying, well, fine, we'll affiliate with the WCC, but at the same time, we want to bring the voice of the people on the ground. that God is the God of the oppressed, and we need to make sure that we deal with those issues. And sometimes it's important that when we talk about these council of churches and mainly linking them with ecumenism, because council of churches, sometimes it's about unifying on a cause rather than on doctrinal issues. We might not agree doctrinally about many scriptural things, but if there's a cause that brings us together and say, we are fighting injustices when it comes to gender-based violence, whatever issue that might be on the table. And that's what needs to bring the churches together in dealing with those things and addressing those things.
Yeah, that's why some of the pastors, they were really trying to not associate themselves with even the South African Council of Churches because of the doctrinational issues.
Yeah, but also remember, yes, in those years, it was not only doctrinal issues. Remember, before the independent ministries in those many years, the church in South Africa, in our communities, was very denominational. The Assemblies of God, the United Apostolic Faith Church, the Apostolic Faith Mission, all these Pentecostal and many others were very denominational. And some of those denominational churches were governed or was brought by the whites, the FM, the United, and some of them had their own agendas. So affiliating with the SACC, apart from being doctrinal issues, was more political and saying you can't because you mustn't worry about what is happening in the world.
I'm a communist.
Exactly, So it wasn't just difference on doctrine, but it was also political in its nature. To try and make us to not focus on the things of the world, as they were putting it.
To wrap it up, in Zulu we say umenzi uyakhohlwa, umenziwa akakhohlwa. That means the perpetrator usually forgets, but the victim always remember. So, and I don't even know, let's say the whites in South Africa, I don't even know if they are perpetrators as far as the missionaries are concerned, or it was just the system that was created, but the church supported that system. So how now we as we claim we were victim for so many years, how can we communicate with them to remind them, okay, we are not in the same place, and in a way that they can accept it, not in a way of the, feeling like we're saying we are reminding them their ills.
Remember the person who orchestrated apartheid in South Africa was what we call an evil genius. He orchestrated something that was not only affecting the blacks, but even many of the white South Africans at that time. They were living in their own world and also were affected. So systematically, we were all in one way or another affected. The other side was not seeing the injustices that they were causing to the other side. The other side was feeling these injustices. So we lived in two separate worlds that the other one doesn't. And even those who were just ordinary citizens, which were white, they were not quite understanding what was going on in townships because those news were not shared to them. To them was, we are just secluded, we live our own lives. These ones are secluded for whatever various reasons that could be. So all of us in different scale, I want to believe that we are affected, particularly people like yourself, myself, and those who are older. I say that we lived in different times of our nations. We lived in the apartheid era. We live in the new South Africa era. Now we are living in this South Africa that is really challenged by many issues. So we have tasted basically everything. There are those fortunate ones who just know the new South Africa and the struggles that we have today. Others, they probably know the struggles we have today and don't really know what apartheid was about. Now, it is not the intention to keep on reminding people of the evil past, for just reminding them unnecessary. But at the same time, history, we cannot erase it. And I think that's where the role of the clergy and the role of media like yourselves come come and play an important role, because you guys are influencers. You bring celebrities here when it comes to music, whether they are gospel artists, but they bring a message, motivational people who talks in these radio shows and so on. I think we need to bring a narrative that is different this time. If we as a church, we are not bringing a different narrative, somebody will tell the story and will tell it wrongly. And we need this countercultural voice, that clergy, that we're not imitating the celebrity culture or the world, but we bring the truth of the gospel. We address some of the past injustices that does exist, the current injustices. So we need to be the voice, the voice of the people, and bring the truth, offer the depth and the value-based content. We need this value-based content so that people can be helped. And as I said, media discipleship is the most powerful thing. Engaging on radio, on social media, on podcast, to teach, to correct, to encourage ethically. We need those things. We need collaborations, work with other people who do good to uplift our young people, but also to guard this doctrinal integrity so that people don't get lost of what the true gospel is about. Maybe it's time that clergy must innovate through media to remain relevant. This digital ministry, whether it's TikTok theology, online devotions, the Instagram lives, these YouTube things. We really need those things to reach people with the true gospel. And that's what we can do in our lives. So finally, I think we really need to encourage people that we need to be embedded in the Word of God. We need to understand the realities that are happening around us, but be that moral voice. We need this contextual theology. What is the context that we live in, and what messages we need to bring to people to heal them and to save them. That's where I will end for this evening, or this morning on your side.
I didn't want to end because I feel like you're bringing a lot, but I feel like you also I don't want to say apologetic, but I feel like you are getting easier. We are being easy to the people who are perpetrators, because even today, even here in the US, people, they act like there was never slavery, especially on the white side. They always act like, so what are you complaining about? Like, there's all, if we didn't start on the same level, we're never gonna be the same. If you just had the Comrade Marathon, if some they're gonna start in Pietermaritzburg, and some they're gonna start in Pinetown, then the ones that started in Pinetown, they're most likely gonna win, right? And then once they win, they act like, oh, we were supposed to win too. We all were in the same Comrade Marathon.
Yeah, no, you quite right, and I think we need, as much as we cannot forget, history is documented, history is there, it's in the files, it's shelved, but we also need healing. We need solutions. Other people will say, but you cannot be healed until the perpetrator accepts his wrongs. But as I say, that apartheid and colonialism was a system, very systematic, that some of the people we are talking to today, they don't even know where these things started themselves. Some of them, they probably suffer by virtue of being a different color to us, but they also don't know where this thing really started. And that's why some of them are very resilient and say, but you can't come and tell me you want the land and take the land. This is my father's land. I say, but do you know where your father got it? He said, my father got it from my grandfather. And this thing dates back to the 1800s when this world was best. And the people who live today might not quite want to believe and move their heads to that era and that time. Now, how do you deal with both sides of the fence to say, but there's certain things you need to acknowledge that you've done wrong, and there's certain things that also I, as a victim, I need to forgive you on, so that we find a way of moving forward, because dwelling in the past might not be very fruitful unless there's a reason of doing that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but there's no need just to open the wounds without having a reason where we want to go. Why should we just open the wounds? But if opening the wounds is to have corrective measures on certain things, fair enough. I do understand and engage there. So it really depends on issues, on matters, on context, who we're dealing with, where and how, so that people, we are able to engage with them properly. Yeah, maybe let's have another discussion on this matter of bridge builders, what I call bridge builders, because we need bridge builders now, who will build the bridge between the perpetrators and the victims in many ways, whether through the apartheid and so on. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission tried to do that, didn't succeed. But what is the church role now doing when it's trying to bridge this build rather than just creating divides? And maybe it's something we can have a conversation on at length on another day.
In support of what you do, in support of what you're saying, when I came here first in 1995, I was on scholarship, and yes, it happens that one of the people who was on the same scholarship with me was white, and I was telling him, I said, you are supposed to be far in life than me. You're still starting a scholarship, you're still funding that because you had all these privileges. But anyway, not to say that. And then he was saying he is so surprised that we brush teeth. We black people, we also know how to brush teeth. We know how to take a shower. They didn't know this thing. They thought we're just living in some Bundu land somewhere that we don't even know this thing. They don't even know. And I'm talking about the South African. So they really lived in a very, very different world that they don't know what's going on. But yes, that's why I'm supporting you, that sometimes apartheid divided themselves among themselves and us amongst themselves. So
in a very big way, in a
very big way. And this we were young then. We were 24, 20, 23, 24. So I think they should have known better. But doctor, I'm so excited. You see, I told you guys, he's a doctor, he's a teacher. He just teaching comes naturally. Look at what we've learned. You could have paid a lot of tuition fee with what he just told us today. So we are so appreciative, Dr. Mahlangu, for your time. But please, you are not. This is not going to be your last time. You are going to be a frequent guest in this platform, because we need to, not to defend the gospel, but we need to clarify what's going on in the ministry, what's going on in our lives, because sometimes we get blamed for nothing. Sometimes people get blamed for nothing. Sometimes they get praised for nothing. So we need to talk about these issues. And God bless you. I know you're going to the next assignment as a man of God. So I'll let you go. Thank you so much, Dr. Sipho. Please, if you were here, I see people are watching on Facebook. Please share this live and comment so that people can know, so that they can learn what we just learned today. Sipho, God bless you,
brother. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the engagement, and I wish you all the best, the good work that you are doing with your listeners. And I pray that may this project that you've started grow beyond borders and beyond your imagination. And may God bless you with this wonderful work you are doing. And I really appreciate for the invite to have this inaugural, I nearly said lecture, but this inaugural discussion that we had together. And I'm available once invited in the near future. God bless you. Have a fantastic day and future. May the Lord be with you.
That was Dr. Sipho Mahlangu here at Africa USA Radio. He's coming all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa, in Soweto, in a place called Soweto. Although he moved now, he lives in the posh suburb somewhere because he's blessed. But we thank God for his knowledge. We thank God for his articulating this issue of the land, this issue of clergy. We want to engage every Wednesday. Is gonna come in, not him, but we're gonna come in with different clergies and discuss different issues. And if you have questions that you want us to ask the guest, please inbox me or write them on the comments so that we can answer those questions. We want to be all in and all out. We're gonna be doing not only church stuff. We're gonna be. This one was engaging the clergies to society of today, because we want to ask and we want to talk about the real life issues of today, so that we can know what religion, what Christianity, what church, what clergy is. And God is gonna bless you. Please don't forget to follow us at Africa USA Unity Events Radio and TV on Facebook. That's where we are live right now. Share that page, please, so that people, when we come in, they can always follow. And we thank God for those that listened. We thank God for those that liked. And if you have questions, please put them in there. And then you can also follow us at Instagram at Africa USA Unity Events, TikTok Africa USA Unity Events, and on YouTube. We are live on YouTube as well today now, and it's Africa USA Unity Events channel. Please, while you're there, subscribe, like, press that bell so that you can get all the notification of all the videos that we're going to be dropping, and God is going to bless you. This is Reverend Q here at Africa USA Radio Drive Home Show, and we say we love you. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.